The Charlotte Hornets are looking at new coaching candidates. Who could those guys be? Plus, Lavar Ball, he's got some comments for us. We'll get to all of them today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3, 92.7 FM. Doug, let's get right to it. We got some coaching candidates to look to. We talked about it yesterday. It's
so quick.
Coaching Search Pod. It's Coaching Search Radio, and let's just dig right in because we have a lot of coaching candidates to go through. There's one familiar name from the last time they were looking for a coach after they fired James Borrego, and then there are a few names that people might be unfamiliar with. Adrian Wojnarowski did put out the Hornets get the okay to interview 4 top assistants report yesterday, and these are the 4 assistants that the Hornets got the okay to interview. Jeff Peterson gets to begin this search with Denver Nuggets assistant David Adelman, Sacramento Kings assistant Jordi Fernandez, Boston Celtics assistant Charles Lee, and Phoenix Suns assistant Kevin Young. Doug, I'll just let you take this wherever you want to roll, wherever you want to go. What's interesting about some of those names there that are mentioned in the Woj report?
Well, as you said in the cold open, the common denominator here is that they are all assistant head coaches, and most, if not all of them, though, are lead assistant, and some of them even have head in the title. They're like assistant head coach. And all of them are generally young. You know, and that makes it, well, I mean, there are some older guys that are on the bench that have never been head coaches. In fact, several of them are on Steve Clifford's staff right now, and they haven't been looking at any of those guys. So they are looking for sort of the hot young assistants to bring in here to the Charlotte Hornets job. Yeah, I mean, we can just kind of go down. Although I will say what's interesting is that in the first Woj report, Chris Quinn's name came up, the lead assistant for Spoelstra's staff in Miami. He was not one of the names listed here by Woj yesterday as having gotten permission. So I don't know if that means that they went to Miami and Miami said, no. Yeah, that's an interesting, can you as an NBA team say, look, no, you cannot talk to this person?
Well, you know, I'm trying to think. I mean, we just went through this with the NFL coaching search, and what happens is the coordinators get blocked. If another team wants to interview your coordinator for the same position, you can block them, and it happens all the time. But I don't know if that really happens. I don't know. You can't do it when you're trying to interview them for a promotion. So I don't think you could do it for the NBA. Maybe you can. I don't know. Maybe they just decided that this is the first wave of interviews, and then they'll get to Quinn later. Who knows? But you're right. He was in the first report.
No, this is Spoelstra shenanigans. This is Pat Riley. This is Uncle Pat getting in the way of the Hornets' success once again. Stole Alonzo Mourning from us, and now he has to do it again with this Chris Quinn situation. Also, I don't know why, but I blame Terry Rozier as well. Terry's got something to do with this.
Oh, no,
not
Terry.
know.
Again, yeah, that's tough. All right, what are some of the so I can start it off. I mean, we can start with Charles Lee.
Before we get into the names, let me ask you one more question, because you've been doing this a long time in terms of the radio, the coaching discussions. How much are we really going to be able to determine which one of these guys is the guy? You know what I'm saying?
Not much.
That's what I'm saying. Because like we can run down some facts that we've researched, but I just feel like these discussions are a little bit unproductive because it always boils down to, well, this guy's an assistant on a good team, so that must mean he's good. or assistant head coach on a good team, that must mean he's good.
It's so much easier with the NFL. So when you roll with, we run into this problem when we're looking for who the next GM is supposed to be, and we ran into this problem with Jeff Peterson, right? But you run into that problem in the NFL, but in the coaching circles, you can go to coordinators and you can figure out what they're responsible for. Because if you hire a head coach in the NFL and then you hire an offensive coordinator, well, you know exactly what their work is. If they are the OC and they are the play caller, then you can see in game what their X's and O strategy is. You can see how they've put their quarterback in easier places to succeed. It is a lot more substantial to be able to point to something and have plenty more evidence in the NFL. In the NBA, you're right. We can only do so much research and figure out what these assistants are responsible for. And so it's going to be tough in the NBA to do this. But in the NFL, like, you can actually really make some informed opinions in a way you probably can't do in the association.
Okay, so what do we know about these guys? Who do you want to start with?
Well, I'll go with the guy that I know the most about in Charles Lee, because it feels like there's the most information to be gathered here. And if you go, there's an Athletic article on Charles Lee after he comes from the Bucks organization and then goes to the Boston Celtics. He was with the Bucks for a while. Before that, he was with, drumroll, the Atlanta Hawks, because we are becoming the 4 Hours North version of Atlanta with Jeff Peterson, Rick Schnall, their assistant GM, and, of course, maybe the head coach. That'd be four guys, four authority figures with the Hawks organization, all being here with the Hornets. Charles Lee, from what I understand, a really positive guy, so making the NFL comparison again. Dave Canales is just high energy, all positive, and apparently players respond to that. A lot of people in the organization with Boston, Milwaukee, whoever, they all respond to it. I saw Chris Middleton and Grayson Allen as two players that Lee worked real closely with to see where they are now. Impressive. Those are the two players. Sometimes you hear guys worked closely with some of the other, whatever star, whatever role player. Those are the two names that I came across in this Athletic article. But the coaching tree's crazy, right? He's worked with Quinn Snyder. He's worked with Darvin Ham. He's worked with Mike Budenholzer. And he's worked with Kenny Atkinson. I know that's kind of a taboo name. Anyways, that's the info that I have on Charles Lee, and I think that's why he's kind of the favorite, highly thought of, and we actually have a little bit of evidence as far as just what's been reported on him.
Yeah, that's one thing you want to see, right? You want to see star players for former teams that these guys have been a part of speak highly of them, because this is more of a players' league. This is a star management league. I mean, you heard Steve Clifford on his way out the door saying it used to be the players had their people. Now their people have their people. There are layers to this. There's politics to this now. It's such a great line. There are politics to this now that you have to be able to navigate, and you have to be able to understand. And so you are getting some good quotes. I saw a good quote on David Adelman, who is the son of Rick Adelman. Nepo, baby! He was the Trailblazers ball boy. David Adelman, there's a good quote here from Denver from Nikola Jokic, who said, quote, "I really think he's the guy who's going to be the next head coach because he has that head for a head coach. He is thinking in front, he knows answers, and he reads and reacts." And that's so important, because I remember when Steve Clifford had his health problems during his first run, and you had Steven Silas take over. And when Clifford came back, he was praising Silas's effort and saying that it only takes one or two moments when you stand in front of the guys and they get a sense that you don't know how to solve a problem, you don't know what to do in the middle of a game when somebody's attacking you in a particular way and you don't have an answer. Professional basketball players who have been doing this thing over and over and over again, and they've seen it all, they've done it all, they can sense it, they can smell it, and you lose it. That's when you lose the locker room. That's when you lose their respect. And so to hear that, from Nikola there, that Adelman does think ahead, he does read and react, and he has the respect of one of, if not the best player in the NBA right now. I mean, that's pretty good.
Well, and isn't it funny how we always laud the players that are the son of a coach? Do we like the coach that's the son of a coach? That seems good too. So if you get Adelman, then that would make a lot of sense. I know people are high on Jordy Fernandez as well. Matt George, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, speaks highly of him. And if Jordy Fernandez comes from a team that had to go through a lot of development and piece that organization together, that came from the depths of hell back to a postseason appearance and now have some stars they're working with, you could credit their front office, but also you can credit their player development to some degree. And maybe Jordy Fernandez is a guy, after working with what has been a fun offensive team, if that's something you're looking to roll with, then he would be somebody interesting to bring aboard as well. Like, I don't have as much information on him. Charles Lee still is number one in that category, but all of these guys you hope have a glowing review, or else you wouldn't interview him.
I know why you like Jordy Fernandez.
Yep, that's right. That's why. Yep, that's right. That's why. Because Malik Monk, baby. I mean, Malik Monk is out there going to win 6th Man of the Year. That's it.
Okay, now I have 2 reasons why you love Jordi Fernandez.
Okay,
that wasn't
what's
it.
The other one? What's the other one?
The other one is that he is a native of Barcelona. So he might have the inside track on finally bringing your guy, James Najee. He could bring 2 guys. He could bring both of your guys, Malik Monk and James Najee, back to Charlotte.
You outed me. Those are both the reasons. Honestly, Charles Lee, who? I'm done. I don't want him anymore. It's all about Jordy.
A fun fact here, neato fact that I thought I was going to forget to bring up here on the show. But there are 2 names here, Jordi Fernandez and the last guy that we haven't talked about yet, Kevin Young, which I think we can talk about on the other side. 2 of these guys have actually replaced Nick Nurse in a job. Jordi Fernandez replaced Nick Nurse recently as Team Canada head coach, and Kevin Young, the Suns' top assistant, he replaced Nick Nurse all the way back, I think, in 2012 as the head coach of the Iowa Energy. I think it was D-League back then, but the G League team for Iowa there. So that's interesting. And then a lot of these guys were interviewing to replace Nick Nurse in Toronto, and none of these guys got the job last year. So, but I would love to talk about Kevin Young because I think he's super interesting, and I've done the most research on him, and I want to sound really smart.
Let's do it. Let's make Doug sound smart on the other side of the break. Coming up next on Locked On Hornets.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Of course, we're going to make Doug Branson try to sound smart, but also we'll finish up some of our thoughts on more coaching candidates. That's still to come on Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match, and this offer is good through April 30th. You can get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Doug, you wanted to sound smart. You have Kevin Young research. What kind of information were you able to dig up on Kevin Young?
So Kevin Young, the lead assistant right now for the Phoenix Suns. And interesting, I mean, he interviewed for the Phoenix Suns head coaching position last offseason, but that went to Frank Vogel. Several of these guys interviewed for that job. And a lot of people thought, because Kevin was already part of the organization, a lot of people thought it was his job to lose. And because, they made that run and got, all of these veteran players and they wanted to make a title run, it seemed like that they wanted to go out and get a veteran coach, and they got one in Vogel. But it also seems like they've split up some duties here. So Vogel seems to run the defense, and you've got Kevin Young as sort of the offensive-minded young genius helping to shape that offense that is, according to Dunks and Threes, adjusted offensive rating for strength of schedule, they're, I think, 8th or 7th in the league in offense. They've got a lot of talent there, obviously. But, we've seen talented teams mess up the offensive side of the floor because how do you balance all of that talent? Kevin Young, if whatever his responsibility for that is, they've done a decent job. But that's interesting, right? Because you do see that a lot in the NFL. You've got an offensive coordinator, you've got a defensive coordinator, but this is one guy where we know for sure in the NBA is responsible for offense. So if you're someone that wants this team to play better offensively, wants them to be more free-flowing with LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller and all of this talent that they have, young talent, Kevin Young might be your guy.
Yeah, and if Kevin Young is the guy, then it's interesting because I remember the reason Nick Nurse got fired in the first place, right? It's not because he's not a good coach or doesn't have the track record. He has the championship. Yes, that's, of course, with star Kawhi Leonard, but he also did a great job. And Nick Nurse, apparently the people skills wasn't fantastic, and I wonder if that's something where this is where the not so much information hurts guys, and we have no clue what we're talking about, right? Like, we have to try to extrapolate as much as we possibly can. I guess we don't have to, but sometimes we do, where Kevin Young from the Nick Nurse coaching tree, is he going to replace him? Or maybe if you're thinking about replacing a Nick Nurse, then maybe it's the exact opposite, where, okay, he was such a bad people person, then we can go with somebody like Young, who might be a great people person. So maybe it's the exact opposite as I talk myself into it. And that's something Charles Lee's very good at as well. Great with relationships. That can only help, right? If it's a people business in the league, then, either one of those candidates that exemplify that type of trait, then hell yeah, man, bring them on down.
Well, it has to be. It is a people business. It has to be, because you are going in and you're having to communicate to players who are making, 10, 15, 20 times amount of money as you are. You have to go in there and communicate to them, hey, this is what I think we could be doing better to win basketball games. You have to go to your best players and do that, and you have to go to the guys, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 on the rotation. You've got to go to those guys and motivate them to play their best and to be ready as well. And so, yeah, there is some communication skills that go into that. And I think there are a group of guys that are geniuses when it comes to strategy and less so possess that ability to communicate with top stars in the league. So that will be interesting. Now, I do have some quotes here from an Athletic write-up of Kevin Young that was done before the Suns hire. And this is from Rod Baker, says he's going to be a head coach at some point. This is a former head coach with the Delaware 87ers, another development league team, who had Young on his staff. He says, if the Suns don't do it, I think they're making a mistake, but someone is going to capitalize on the expertise that Kevin has. And this quote comes from Billy Lange, who got to know Young in 2014 as an assistant coach with the Philadelphia 76ers. And Lange says, to be a head coach in the league, you got to have a bunch of things, and there are 3 reasons why he thinks that Young will be a great coach. 1, you have to have an appropriate edge to be the leader of an NBA locker room. He has it. It's not over the top. It goes actually more with humility, but he is not afraid of the confrontation or the moment or the conversation. And so Walker, he's going to be stepping into a locker room with a lot of young players that haven't experienced playoff success. And a lot of these guys, this goes for a lot of these guys, they're going to be coming from teams with superstars, with deep playoff runs. How do they translate that into a locker room that has seen none of that?
Yeah.
That's the question that this ownership group and Jeff Peterson, that's the question they better be asking. How do you translate that? How do you make that sort of, move to a team without messing it all up?
Right. No, it's a good point, because we know different situations bring different problems, bring different problem-solving skills that you may have never run into with the previous regime, right? Like, so if we're talking about Phoenix, Phoenix is going through a set of problems, but something very different where they're underperforming with their expectations. That's true of the Hornets, but their expectations was, please God, can we somehow find our way into the play-in tournament? Not, dear God, we're somehow in the play-in tournament. It's very different with going to the Hornets organization. And so one other thing, go ahead. You have something else?
Well, so this guy's an offensive guy, and that's my question to you. As we go through this search, are you looking for someone that is more offensively minded, defensively minded? And I don't know if we really have intel on Charles Lee, Jody Fernandez, David Adelman, whether these guys are offensive or defensive guys. But are you looking for the reaction to the last coach, which was Steve Clifford, who's certainly more defensive-minded? Are you looking for somebody that's going to bring back a little bit of the Borrego hot sauce to the offense?
I'm so worried about overcorrecting, as so many teams do when they get rid of the previous guy, that they go in the complete opposite direction. And that doesn't work either. You just have, again, a different set of problems. And so it feels like that's what happened with James Borrego and Steve Clifford. I'll say this. When LaMelo was on the floor, the offense was way better. The offense was totally fine.
Under Clifford,
Yeah, with Clifford, right. With James Borrego was good at drawing up plays, the difference in just sets and stuff. Borrego was a little mad scientist-y in that respect, and that was fun. He was really good, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. Not so much Steve Clifford, but there is a mentality that Steve Clifford brings. I do think defensively, we saw it the second half of each of the last 2 seasons where they did become one of the better teams in the league defensively within the second second half. But offensively, without LaMelo, it really bogged down with Clifford. But it's like, okay, that's also no Terry Rozier. That's also now no lob threat, and the defense still got better without having a guy like Mark Williams. I think if I had to choose one of the two, I'd probably go. I guess I'd go offense. It's like 51-49 though, because if LaMelo is going to, if LaMelo is going to play, that's one. If he's going to play, I think he's going to cover up a lot of offensive mistakes that you might have, and then help bring out the best on that end of the court. And so if you expect LaMelo to play, then maybe you just need somebody to organize the defense, such as Clifford was trying to do. But if you don't, and you need somebody to help him out if he does hit the bench because of injury, then yeah, I guess I would go offense in that regard. But it doesn't necessarily matter to me as much one way or the other. I just want somebody that is not going to I want somebody that's going to be as well-rounded as possible, as boring of an answer as that is. I don't want to sacrifice one end of the court because this guy's specialty is the other.
I'll say I don't care offense, defense. Here's what I care about. They got to find a guy who can bring some of the fun back to the team. And this isn't even a shot at Steve Clifford. This has been a miserable 2 years of Hornets basketball because of all of the injuries. And this team is going to have to restart for what feels like the 10th consecutive season, okay? Mm-hmm. So whoever comes in has to really – they've got to come in with a lot of energy. They've got to come in with a lot of creativity, and they've got to bring the fun back. I mean, this needs to be 90s kids movie, Mighty Ducks. We got to figure out how to get this team to have fun again because it just feels like everybody's down bad, everybody's frustrated, everybody's a little bit miserable. And so – I think that's you can't have what I'm saying is you can't hire a guy who's going to come in like a drill sergeant. So I'm going to get these guys into shape. It's like, hey, we got to have a little fun at first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have one question before we move on. We have a couple of topics we haven't gotten to yet.
I know.
Doug, it was posed to me bringing on a high-end college coach yesterday, and the couple guys that were in question, one would be going after Dan Hurley, which wouldn't happen with him, on his way to possibly a second title in a row. But Nate Oates is reasonable enough. I'm with you. Trust me. Just hear me out for a second. Okay. Nate Oates is reasonable enough to bring up in NBA discussions just because he runs an NBA-style offense, because he's had success in Tuscaloosa.
Brandon Miller.
Right. Brandon Miller connection, especially here with Charlotte. The problem for me is there's just been I don't like history dictating what you do in the future a lot, but I think here, with there being so many failures with the coaches coming from college to the NBA, that's not anything that I want to roll with. Plus, especially in this situation, right? If you're the Hornets and you're just trying to get stability, you're just trying to get some consistency with a play-in contender, now is not the time to go and try this out-of-the-box thing where you tell your fans, no, we promise it's going to work this time. This is the time it works. We promise. Just do the responsible thing. It's what I was asking the Carolina Panthers to do. They didn't do it with Matt Rule. They did it with Dave Canales. And if it fails, fine. But at least you took a bright and conventional path to go hire your next head coach. Do the assistant young coach thing. Like, I was here for the Borrego hire. It didn't work out, but I liked the process. I thought the process was totally fine, and the decision was totally fine then. Do that again. Just go after the young assistant, or it doesn't even have to be young, but I guess I'd prefer it. Do the conventional, bright thing, and don't get too crazy. Don't be your own worst enemy and then say, you know what, let's try Nate Oates and throw him a whole bunch of money.
Yeah, that would be, I think this sort of finding your next head coach exists on a spectrum. And if this Hornets team were super young and they were starting all the way over and this next pick that they're about to make in the draft would be like their first piece, then I'd say, yeah, go crazy. Like find a college coach or find somebody off the beaten path. That's fine. Because this guy's not going to be your head coach in a couple of years anyway if you decide to get good. And I don't know that hiring like a Budenholzer or a D'Antoni makes as much sense anymore, because I do think you've got to have some creativity, some youth, some player management. I don't think you need an old head. I think you do need somebody young to kind of the young, but has the experience with superstars and playoffs that they can bring with them. I think that's the sort of perfect middle that they're hitting with these names, and I think they ought to stay in that lane for sure. So, and also Nate Oates, this Nate Oates guy.
No, I'm with you. You and I are both the same. Yeah.
Here's why I don't like it, because I think he needs to stay in college. College basketball needs a new villain. After Coach K retired, they need a new villain, and I don't know that Shire at Duke is up to the task. He's too much of an upstanding guy. He doesn't talk a lot of junk, and so I feel like Nate Oates, maybe this is just me, Carolina fan after that loss, but like I think college basketball needs villain coaches, and Nate Oates is too good at the job right now. He's got to stay.
Look at how weird his in-game interviews are. That man has never been comfortable in front of a camera in his entire life. And you can see, please watch his eyeballs. I'm telling you, I said this on WFNZ yesterday.
It would be a Jets situation all over again. Listen, the Hornets don't need wild cards. The last thing that this organization needs is a wild card.
Yep. Totally with you. No. It's going to work this time. Guys, come on. You can trust us. It's going to work. Please don't. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We'll get to those Lavar Ball comments we were talking about. And
worst, speaking of wild cards.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of wild cards. And then worst owner pyramid. You can imagine who's at the top of that. We'll get to it in the last segment of Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. And Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing television that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the in-game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, lots more than that. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. This episode is also brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Classic, exclusive, Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch high-definition touchscreen informant system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. The 2024 Nissan Armada is also available. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style. Tow bigger and explore further in the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. More Locked On Hornets ahead. All right, Doug, well, let's get to these next couple of comments, the next couple of topics. They're not necessarily fun, not for Hornets fans, but we heard from LaMelo Ball's dad, Lavar Ball. You may have heard of him when Lonzo was this phenom that was coming out of UCLA. That's when we were all first introduced to Lavar Ball. And haven't heard a lot from him since LaMelo's been drafted by Charlotte, but we did just a couple of days ago.
There are reasons for that. Well-documented reasons. I mean, he threatened female reporters on air or female talent on air. He made sexist comments to the host of First Take. And so all of these networks all eventually got together and said, okay, we can't put this guy on television anymore. We cannot put a microphone in front of his face because he's saying and doing awful things.
That's correct. And here he is. I don't know if you can't classify it as that, what he said a couple days ago, but he did have some comments here, Doug, that is, central to the Charlotte Hornets. What did he say?
Well, no, this is old school Lavar Ball. So this is and this is a classic story of guy, kind of clown wrestling figure, gets in front of cameras and people like it. And then he already liked himself a lot, saying that, he could beat Michael Jordan one-on-one and stuff like that. But he fell in love with himself so much to the point that he flew too close to the sun and then started, and had the precipitous fall. Like, this is a classic American story here. So here are the comments, but this is classic Lavar Ball before all of that stuff happened. He says, quote, "They say, oh, Lavar, you work the boys out too hard. That's why they hurt. No, the reason they hurt is because they got away from me. And they start doing these Rudy Poo workouts. Because if you keep running them hills, you're going to keep that power and that strength. But you start dealing with these rubber bands and doing this lightweight stuff, of course you're going to start breaking down," unquote. And then he goes on to say, "A lot of things have to do with them raggedy shoes that Melo be wearing.
Yep.
Them shoes are not made the right way for him. That's why he keeps tweaking his ankle every single time," unquote.
Yeah, there's some comments from Lavar Ball. Rudy Poo.
Poo workout.
I think what was it, like Rudy 2 at first, Rudy Poo, whatever. I think it's even changed a little bit. I think it's changed for the last few years. I can't help but go back to this Yahoo headline from Cassandra Negley, and it was in 2019 in September. And here's the headline, Doug. Lonzo Ball admits that Big Baller brand ZO2 sneakers fell apart every quarter. That's not every quarter of the season. That's every quarter of the game. Here's Lonzo Ball commenting about those shoes in question. They were my shoe. I had to debut them. Ball told the podcast about why he continued to wear them. He went so far with it. I'm like, cool, I can get a quarter in, but that's it. We got to switch them every quarter. That's him talking about his dad. And it's crazy because right when I'd switch my shoes, and then all of a sudden, I got good again. Yeah, I mean, we all know about the Big Baller brand. It's really hard to push a brand when your own children are not there for it and actively are talking against it. And I can, like, the dynamic, I kind of hate it because Lonzo's never been loud about all this stuff. Like, I guess he's talking about it there, but Lonzo's never had any kind of issues or anything. And LaMelo, people have their opinions about LaMelo, and yeah, maybe he shouldn't run red lights. That's true. Stop running red lights outside.
Run them hills. Don't run them red lights.
Instead. Run them hills. That's right. So, but this is the thing that we learned about the Ball brothers. It's anything that LaVar does, we don't have to immediately apply to who LaMelo and Lonzo are. And I think this is another example of how frustrating that must be for LaMelo too. Like, I feel for LaMelo a little bit on this because here's now even my dad, making my situation whatever it is, and maybe he's used to it, but it still isn't the greatest thing in the world.
Well, the story on Lavar Ball, the more comfortable story to tell that doesn't involve the things that he was saying on air to women that were totally inappropriate. The more sort of comfortable line on Lavar Ball was that he did a lot of talking to get his boys drafted and to elevate them, and then he sort of moved back into the sort of backseat once they were in the NBA, and he didn't want to sort of disrupt that. And now you have to wonder, now that both of his kids are down bad with injuries and questions about the future of their career, you have to wonder about the timing of all of this. Is it, him sensing a moment where he needs to kind of get back into the arena and yeah, I don't know, motivate people to keep paying attention to them or motivate them? I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. And I hope it doesn't continue, because I can't imagine that him continuing to comment on LaMelo Ball's career is going to be great now that LaMelo Ball has signed this max contract. And I can't help but wonder if this was the last straw for Steve Clifford. He opened up the newspaper, saw these comments, and went, all right, if this guy's going to get back in, I'm out. I can't. If I got to deal with Lavar Ball for the next couple of years, count me out. Sorry, guys.
Last thing, worst owner pyramid. Bill Simmons released this pyramid. Is that right, Doug? This seems correct. Like a Bill Simmons.
Well, he's the pyramid master. He releases a pyramid, every year. So.
And so we know about the worst owners being up here, but we have a couple Hornets representatives. we have two. I hope we don't get three.
Not a couple. I mean, we have literally all of them were mentioned in this pyramid. Okay, so at the top of the pyramid is Donald Sterling. You're not beating that guy. And then one level below Donald Sterling is former Suns owner Robert Sarver, who was forced out, and the Hornets owner that wasn't forced out. Well, eventually he left the New Orleans Hornets, but he was forced to move the team essentially by the city of Charlotte. The citizens of Charlotte said, George, you gotta go, and had his own issues legally with sexual assault allegations and all kinds of stuff that was going down there. And so the one tier below that is the one and only Michael Jordan, along with Glenn Taylor and Howard Schultz. An honorable mention went to Bob Johnson, the first owner of the aptly named Bobcats.
Yeah, man, they're all on there. I don't know if I saw the Bob Johnson one. It makes sense, but I did not see that.
Honorable mention, but take that in. Take that. I just want
know.
you all to digest what I just told you.
Okay.
That over the course of the 30 plus years, or 30, we're doing 35, right? We're re-anniversarying the anniversary.
Yeah.
So in 35 years, the Hornets have had 3 owners, and all 3 of them, and I think rightly so, are listed amongst the worst owners. Although I do have a bone to pick. Honestly think Bob Johnson was a worse owner than Michael Jordan, because Bob Johnson made a network for his team, to put his team on a network that nobody could watch. I mean, way to kill your new franchise's momentum. So that's number one. And then, he hired Michael Jordan.
That's true. They're all good points. You're right, though. I don't want to bathe in that anymore. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That's the news. It's terrible. And
well, can I give you a silver lining? Can I give you a little silver lining here, because I know that was a depressing topic to mention there. And the silver lining is this: if you're Rick Schnall and you're Gabe Plotkin, there's only one way to go, I think. I mean, unless you want to get to, dear God, don't get to Donald Sterling level.
That's what we all went to, right? You said there's only one way to go. We immediately go to, wait, no, it could get worse. We have every single one of our owners on the pyramid, and so now we're gunning for that Robert Sarver and Donald Sterling spot.
But in all seriousness, the way that this ownership structure exists now, and the way that it's going to continue to play out in the NBA, because these NBA teams, the valuations are so large now that there are just so few people in the world that are going to have the money to have a vast majority stake in a team, to be a Michael Jordan, a George Shinn, a Robert Sarver, a Glenn Taylor, a Prokhorov. It might be more Prokhorovs, guys coming from overseas that have, oil money and all kinds of stuff. And so that may be the future. But in terms of American owners, you've got to do what Plotkin and Schnall did here, which is gather, 40 people together who all have a couple hundred thou and scrabble together an ownership group. But what that does, I think, is prevent some of this kind of malfeasance from happening, because you don't have one super ego sitting at the top. And it could prevent future George Shinn, Michael Jordan, Bob Johnson naming the team Bobcats. It prevents this kinds of stuff from happening because you don't have one super ego. So I do have hope that this new group is not going to be featured, or any of these groups that are taking over NBA teams now are going to be featured on this list.
All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcasts, and that includes YouTube. Check us out anywhere you get your pods. And also, again, if you listen to us on YouTube, hit the subscription button and the subscribe button, and also
otherwise
the notification button. Yep, the subscribe button. Thank you very much.
It's
Friday. Let's get to the weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.